It's very filling. Kathleen talked about platform assistant, and that's an easy, nice way of being up here, being able to see what I'm seeing right now. So, that's my plug. So, this is one of my favorite times of the year, autumn. The colors, the cold, I love cold. And for me, the darkness, I like darkness. To honor this Halloween season, I want to tell you a story, a scary story. A few Halloween seasons ago, I went to Philadelphia to visit old friends who live in the Fairmont area, which is near the Eastern State Penitentiary. Now, this is a huge Gothic castle-like structure, empty cell blocks, creepy darkness everywhere. It was once the most famous and expensive prison in the world and became a model for more than 300 prisons worldwide. Anyway, it was operational from 1829 to 1971. Al Capone was there, and eventually turned into a museum. But every September to mid-November, they used the season to turn it into something called terror behind the walls. And it becomes this massive haunted house in what was a real prison. Over 200 performers, all made up professionally like zombies. They inhabit the darkness as you wander through the hallways and cell blocks, never knowing when or where they might appear. Well, my friends live in the neighborhood, they got free tickets. Dina wasn't going to go, so I went with her husband, Zen. We gave our tickets to the guy at the booth. He gives us these 2 glow necklaces. I put mine on immediately. Zen has the presence of mind to ask, "What are those for?" The ticket taker says, "Wearing one lets the monsters know that they can touch you." No thanks. You see, to be fully immersed in the action, the necklace marks you as willing to be grabbed, held, potentially taken into the hidden passageways. I do that to myself. I don't need anything else doing that to me. So we go on, and the ticket taker says one more thing. If it gets too much, just say, "Monster Begone," and they will back off and disappear. Monster Begone, and the beast recedes. Monster Begone, such power and such simplicity. I loved it. And as we walked in, I'm talking to Zen, what a great metaphor this is for dealing with our monsters, teaching kids about this, taking back our power and control, and then I screamed. I screamed many times during that experience. Zen, true to his name, did not. Monster Begone. How many of our thoughts are monsters? That was a great lead-in. How many are frightening, make us feel powerless, diminished, unworthy, not as good as, and filled with shame? Maybe keep us up at night at times? And how many times do you just keep on thinking them, giving more power to them? When they disappear for a while, some situation arises and boom, you bring the monsters back to life, like a Dr. Frankenstein. The monsters of, I can't, I'm not, I don't have. The demons of, you're not smart enough or good enough or spiritual enough. What makes you think you deserve? Or what if that happens? Or Roy, you're retired, you've never wanted to do that. If a stranger said these things to me, I'd think they were nuts. And as if those monsters weren't enough, I realized I really needed to include my judgments. My judgments are truly my daily monsters. A Course in Miracles nails it when it says, whenever judgment enters, reality has slipped away. Judgment will always give you a false direction, but vision shows you where to go. So let me give you an example. A few weeks ago, I was at the gym. I'm about to change into my sneakers, so I want to sit down, and the bench there was taken up by this young guy's stuff. The whole bench. Can you believe it? Oh, the shock in your faces is amazing. I know. Okay? I immediately thought, how selfish. These young people, how clueless, not even aware of taking up a whole bench. No, I bet he is aware of taking up, and he just doesn't care. Immediately. Perception follows judgment, and I reacted to that perception as if it was correct. But I caught myself. I caught myself because I was in the midst of writing and rewriting this talk. And I demanded that judgment, that the monster be gone. Said it to myself. Once I did, it was out of my head. I asked if the young man would make room on the bench. And you know what he said? You know what he had the nerve to say? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I wasn't thinking. Please hear. Monster of judgment, be gone, and I will choose again. Because when I follow you, I separate myself from my brothers and sisters and from my higher self. And to follow Karen's song, when I'm smiling, it goes well beyond me. Think of the power in that. This is called Monster Be Gone, taking back your power. Such power that the whole world smiles with you. Joel Goldsmith reminds us that the beginning of wisdom is when we draw our attention away from the outer world, from the world of appearances, and begin to realize that power is not in it, but in me. It appeared that the young guy at the gym was being inconsiderate, purposely inconsiderate. That is, it appeared to me that's important because quickly appearance can become my truth. Remember, whenever judgment enters, reality has slipped away. I moved past the chatter in my head that made truth out of appearance. That committee up here that keeps the past alive. Monster be gone, the power is not in you, but in me, and it's in me because I can choose again. Instead of clinging to our perception as a universal truth, we all can choose again. I was wrong. He wasn't being inconsiderate. I engaged the young man, and I learned yet again how much work I still have to do. And you know what? I'm doing it. Spiritual progress, not perfection. In The Wizard of Oz, Glinda says to the Wicked Witch, "Begone, you have no power here." But of course she does. She does if we give her that power, and if we don't choose again. But let's be honest, it's hard sometimes to tell your monsters to beat it. Well, unless you're writing a Sunday message here about doing so, and you're conscious of it, and you feel responsible and motivated to actually try that out. But we need to remember there are other options besides begone. There's a story I love about this old Buddhist woman who returns to her hut to find 3 of her old demons, her monsters, making a ruckus. She walks in, she starts the fire, she starts the boiling water. They ramp it up a notch. She calmly continues to do her business. They do their demon damnedest to get a fearful reaction from her roars and horrible shrieks, but still, nothing. She's just looking to see if the water's boiling. So the most frightening demon sticks his face in hers, and he says, "We are fierce. Your 3 worst demons, monstrous to behold. And all you do is boil water. What is going on?" She looks at the demon, she looks at all of the demons, and she says, "You've been here before. You'll be here again. In the meantime, what kind of tea do you want?" Dalai Lama says past memories, pains are still there. They've not gone away. It's how we choose to relate to them. How we choose to relate to them. Now, I'd like to think that that woman in the story had previously tried to get rid of them through therapy, Zoloft, meditation, yoga, telling knock-knock jokes, but that she wasn't able to. So instead, she rationally made a conscious choice to choose another option, to let them be. To let them be without going down that old path of fear, anxiety, rumination. To observe them, to become a witness without becoming embroiled in the battle. Because the power was not in them. The power to choose was in her. In this case, then, it's not monster begone. In this case, it's peaceful acceptance. You can stay. I just won't engage you in the same way. Pass the sugar. Reminds me of an article I read in the Unity magazine. Hundreds of times a day, we are offered a chance to make friends with a difficult moment rather than gritting our teeth. It comes down to these micro moments, tiny moments, moment-to-moment decisions that we make about how we approach what is in front of us. Will I resist what's in front of me and live with bitterness and frustration? Or will I align my body, mind, and spirit with the way things are, allowing myself to be at peace? For we learn here in Unity, what you resist persists. Well, what persists haunts. And that's the real terror behind these walls. Again, Joel Goldsmith. The beginning of wisdom is when we draw our attention away from the outer world, from the world of appearances, and begin to realize that power is not in it, but in me. I choose whether or not to wear that glowing necklace, which invites the monsters to come closer to me. At times, I'm like Dr. Frankenstein, giving life to my personal monsters who once had lived. Maybe they were buried for a while during my healthier moments, but when I regress or feel scared or hurt, I bring them back to life to protect me, to help me, to survive. I do survive, but they don't help me. They're just old thinking. They're harmful, debilitating old thoughts. Thoughts that are not from the world of spirit, but from the world of appearances. And they need to return there, because when my monsters roar, I can't hear God. You know, after so many years of living our routine, our thoughts just seem to happen. Mine just seem to happen. We might, as someone wrote, not even take notice, let alone act, before they are gobbled up by the familiar urgencies that make their endless rounds. Well, Unity asks us to take the time to take notice, to be aware. For how can one change what one is not aware of? In the Sufi tradition, it's suggested that our thought should pass through 3 gates. At the first gate, we ask of our thought, is it true? If so, we let it pass through to the next gate and ask, is it necessary or useful? If that's true, we let that thought continue to the 3rd gate, where we ask, is this thought rooted in love and kindness? Thoughts that are neither true, nor helpful, nor kind, falter at the gates. At times, the backup at my gates would be worse than the traffic in Northern Virginia. At times. Notice they say we let the thoughts pass through. It's our choice as gatekeepers, which means we need to stop and take notice of the thought. Be aware without immediately jumping on that freight train of a thought that's barreling through our minds. The freight train, they still run through my mind, and I've gotten better at not jumping on, Probably more accurately, I do jump on. I got much better at jumping off. So many of our roadmaps, our thoughts, are roadmaps we once used, but they become useless and actually disabling and hurtful. Is this thought true? Is it necessary? Is it rooted in love and kindness? No, no, no to all three regarding my gym experience. Regarding many of my experiences, I'm guessing some of yours too. If I ask you to share, and I won't this time, but if I ask you to share an experience, one experience where your thinking got in the way, which experience would that be? And let me be clear, I'm just asking you to bring into consciousness, not to judge yourself. This is about awareness. You know, when I get to spend time thinking about my unity of life behaviors, because I'm going to stand up here in front of you and talk about actually using them, it reinforces them, gives me a chance to practice them, and to stand here and say out loud, look what I did, look what I'm still working on, look what I still need to work on. And this is just generally true with behavior change. It puts the behaviors I'm trying to change in the forefront of my mind. It helps the behavior live another day to continue rather than die in silence. Which got me wondering, what do you think of one time perhaps having the message one Sunday or part of the service be some members of the community taking a minute or two, share something they've done, been aware of, tried, perhaps a new behavior or a different choice that we can applaud, support, offer congratulations. One that's relevant to our unity principles. Because sharing it, giving it voice, can really help keep it alive in the consciousness. Maybe it's not a message, maybe it's a group that meets after service, coffee. I spoke with Jane about this, who also experienced the power in sharing her journey. And I think, John, you talked about, you did a powerful talk a few weeks ago, we talked, you felt that experience too. Jane was wondering, what about a section in our program to let people briefly announce growth, new learning? New behaviors need to be watered and nurtured by us, by others who care and cheer us on to more spiritual, healthful ways of living. Because maintaining new behaviors takes work, and sharing it builds community as we get to know each other better. Just one more thing. It's not about it being successful. It's not about it working. It's about us trying something new and being able to support each other in that. Trying a different path, a unity path. That's what we have control over. So if there's any interest, you can let any of us know. Woody, the board, me. I just am so aware when I stand up here that the month or two is like, wow, I'm working it. I'm doing it. Charles Fillmore reminds us a healthy state of mind is attained and continues when the thinker lets go of the old thoughts and takes on new. We are often reminded that we need to stop seeing through the body's eyes. The Course says the opposite of seeing through the body's eyes is the vision of Christ, which reflects strength rather than weakness, unity rather than separation, and love rather than fear. And when we do that, when we take on new thoughts, we are dismantling our old selves, our old realities, and as Eric Fromm says, we are giving birth to ourselves. For me, sharing out loud helps me with that birthing process. Now, speaking of giving birth, I want to tell you something I noticed in writing this, which was when I was actually using Moms to Begone at times to deal with some of my thoughts. I noticed after the second week, they responded, they looked back at me. They didn't fight, they weren't oppositional, they looked relieved, and they were very, very tired. Really. By week 3, I thought Moms to Begone, or actually by that point I was saying it out loud. Not when I was with people on a bus or something, when I was alone. And I noticed when I said it, they were gone like this. Like that. Before I got both words out of my mouth. And I realized something that for me was really profound. You see, they never asked to be born or to be used this way. Oh, I'm getting chills. I had asked them to be fierce, thinking they'd protect me. I was wrong. They never even wanted to be there in the first place. They were my creations, or I adopted my parents' creations or what they inherited, and I nurtured them. Either way, they were born out of fear and ill-used, which means I was a thoughtless parent. I am a thoughtless parent, is what I'm thinking. Monsters, begone, and I'm sorry, for I am capable of being a much better parent. By the way, I decided to Google Monster Begone, and guess what I found? Many, many Monster Begone sprays. Safely eradicates all types of monsters, including but not limited to the common closet bed monsters, zombies, goblins, ogres, and trolls. Choose from Bite Me or Marshmallow Ghost. Then I thought, how about a Monster Begone app? Checked and there wasn't one. I thought, what if one dings or gongs or maybe growls or roars when we're face to face with one of our monsters, when we need to dismiss a negative judgmental thought, when we need to choose again. For our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying, always. And Course in Miracles reminds us there's no such thing as idle thoughts. What gives rise to the perception of a whole world can hardly be called idle. What gives rise to a world of lack, or to a world of abundance, to a world of fear or peace, of judgment or vision, and ultimately to a world of separation or connection. There's this New Yorker cartoon. Adam and Eve are standing looking at this bush. Now the apple tree is behind them, and God is above them. It's a New Yorker cartoon, you gotta put God somewhere. God's above them. And they're looking at the bush, and God says, oh, but feel free to eat from the shrub of delusion. The shrub of delusion, the world of separation that you spoke about. According to Eric Butterworth, the Sanskrit word for prayer is judging oneself to be wondrously made. If your thoughts on prayers, are they worthy of the higher consciousness that you have? Because each of us selects the law under which we live. Emily Cady, she goes on and says, it's not true we make the law, but we decide which law we will obey. We select the law, we make that choice, a choice to live under the highest law of being, a law acknowledging that we are wondrously made or not. A choice to live under a law that permits and encourages monsters to roam freely in our minds, pillaging our thoughts, making us see a disaster, a catastrophe, instead of holiness and hope and connection. Making us uphold the experience of separation from God and from one another and from our true selves. And our separation from God and from one another is a departure from our essence. That's on Course in Miracles. It's from a book called The Mind of God by a behavioral neurologist, Dr. J. Lombard. A behavioral neurologist. Our separation from God and from one another is a departure from our essence. So which law do you select? Separation or connection? For there is no choice what lies between the two. Our thoughts can hurt, belittle, reinforce our unworthiness, diminish us. They can maim, they can eviscerate. Our thoughts can sometimes kill. Our brain, our mind can be dangerous or can be a miracle worker. It can birth monsters or healing spirit. As Dr. Lombard says, this one organ under God, with the liberty to fall prey to demons or to follow a more healthful and productive path, is the single implement we use to heal ourselves and others. So, in ending, Take off your glowing necklace. First ask what it is before you put it on. Take off your glowing necklace, burn that troubled delusion, buy a month to Begone spray, and choose to take back your power and your power to heal. And at the same time, let's choose to be better parents to our monsters, for we created them. Blessings, my friend.
Dream when you're feeling blue. Dream, that's the thing to do. Just watch the smoke rings rise in the air. You'll find your share of happiness there. So dream when the day is through. Dream and they might come